Civil War in the United States, Part 1. Now, our first subtopic is coming up here, but before we talk about that, I'm just going to give you some general information about the Civil War in the United States. So we really don't have a subtopic to start. Just going to give you some information, and you need to kind of write some of this down. Now, the thing you have to remember about the Civil War is that tactically, in other words, the way it's fought, would be a lot different from any other wars that came before this. Okay, the tactics are going to be different. Okay, and you got to remember it's going to be the first large-scale war in which you're going to have, multi-shot repeating pistols. You're going to have carbines, and you're going to have rifles that are multi-shot. We're used to the one at a time. Bite off the gunpowder, put it in, ram it down, the mini ball, and shoot it. Now, this doesn't happen right away in the Civil War. It's going to be in the latter stages, but it's obviously going to give the ability to kill people at a higher rate because of these repeating rifles and pistols. Remember the old tactic of they fired volleys in at each other? They kind of stood tight and fired volleys. You're not going to see that in the Civil War. Okay, it's going to be a lot different tactically. Okay? Now, technology, although we don't consider the technology what it is today by any stretch, but new technology is also going to greatly affect the war. And I'm going to give you 3 examples of how technology will be different during the Civil War than it was in other wars. Okay, 3 examples of new technology. First of all, you're going to have ironclad ships in this war. And they're going to be powered by steam, not wind. Okay? So you're going to have steam-powered, ironclad ships. And they're even going to have pivoting guns on them and ramming devices, unlike we had ever seen before. So ships are going to be more warlike, more devastating.
Why are we going to need ships in the Civil War?
Well, because we're going to fight, you'll see. We're going to fight in water also. Yep. So steam-powered ironclad ships. They're going to have pivoting guns and ramming devices. There's an example. You're going to have the field telegraph. Anybody know what that is? Field telegraph? A radio, so to speak, primitive. Way to communicate between lines. Okay, a field telegraph. First time, we're going to have a communications tool like the field telegraph, where you can actually speak to each other from a distance. And we're going to use surveillance to scout out the enemy. What are they going to use for surveillance, to survey? Anybody want to know what came up, new technology that allowed them to scout out? Hot air balloons. Very good. A gas balloon will be used for surveillance. And it was developed by a person by the name of Thaddeus Lowe. Thaddeus Lowe. I'll write his name on the board because it's not on your sheet. Make sure I spell it right here. So Thaddeus Lowe invents what we know as the gas balloon. Okay? And it's going to be used to go up and find enemies' positioning. Okay? So we have a lot of different technology that's going to make this a different war. Steam-powered ironclad ships, a field telegraph, and gas balloons. Now, in the beginning, when all these states seceded, and it looked like we were going to have a civil war, the Union, which is the North, which is the United States government, really thought this would be over very quickly. And I guess on the other hand, I think the Confederates thought the same, that this would not last very long, that they each would win quickly. They had confidence. Well, this war that began in April of 1861 with the fall of Fort Sumter, which we talked about, is going to last 4 long years with thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of casualties. Unbelievable loss of life. So what everybody thought would be a real short affair turns out to last over 4 years and cause unbelievable casualties on both sides. Now, the Civil War is known in American history as the Civil War, but there are other names that it was given depending on your philosophy. Anybody want to guess what one was? Anybody heard another name for the Civil War? How about the Brothers' War? Because brother fought against brother at times. Brothers' War was another name. If you were from the South, and you were pretty close pairs, the War for Southern Independence was another term used. The War for Southern Independence. Now you got to hear this one. The war between the what? The war between the states. The war between the states was another term used. It's also called the War for States' Rights. The War for States' Rights. Also often referred to as the war between the North and the South. The war between the North and the South. So the Brothers' War, the War for Southern Independence, the war between the states, the War for States' Rights, the war between the North and the South, was also termed as the War of Northern Aggression. Kind of slamming who? The North, yeah. The War of Northern Aggression. And even a further slam to the North as it was referred to as, quote, Mr. Lincoln's War. So there are a lot of names for the Civil War. The Brothers' War, the War for Southern Independence, the War between the states, the War for States' Rights, the War between the North and the South, the War of Northern Aggression, and Mr. Lincoln's War, besides the Civil War. With that said, going into this Civil War, we'll tell you Northern advantages versus Southern advantages. Because both the North and the South are going to be able to claim some advantages over the other at the beginning of the war. Northern advantages versus Southern advantages. We'll start with Northern advantages. Anybody want to guess what advantage the North might have over the South starting this thing up? Kind of. Manufacturing. Okay, it's going to take factories to develop war supplies. And 80% of the factories in the United States at the time were located in the North. So manufacturing was a big advantage for the North because 80% of the factories in the United States were in the North. What else might be an advantage? How are you going to move that stuff that you manufacture? Right, railroads. 70% of the railroad lines in the United States were in the North. 70% of the railroad lines in the United States were in the North. Definite advantage. If you don't railroad it, how else are you going to move it? What? Ships. Shipping. And which area owned a large majority of the shipping companies in the United States?
The North.
The North. So shipping was another big advantage, which you're missing maybe the easiest one if you're going to fight a war. Okay, if we're going to play football against Laramie, what's going to be the biggest disadvantage we have at war with? Amount of people, right? So population was the #1 advantage. So we talked about manufacturing, 80% of the factories in the United States were in the North. We talked about railroads, 70% of the railroad lines in the United States were in the North. We talked about shipping, where the North owned a large majority of the shipping companies, but population was the big advantage. The North had a population of about 20 million at the time, compared to the South's 9.5 million. So over twice as much. But that doesn't tell the story, because of the 9.5 million Southerners, what are 4 million of those? Slaves. Are they going to fight for the South? No. So if you look at the population, it's really 20 million to 5.5 million. Although there are 9.5 million in the South, 4 million are slaves. So huge population advantage for the North. But the South did have some advantages. Anybody want to guess what they are? Not quite as logistic, but what would be some advantages the South might have?
Didn't the South have most of the major military academies like that?
Well, not so much the academies, but the South had the stronger military tradition. The U.S. Army at the time was dominated by Southern soldiers. Most of the men that served in the United States Army prior to Civil War were from the South. Are they going to stay on the northern side and fight? No, they're going to move out of there. So Paris is actually going to hit a couple of them. The South had a stronger military tradition as the U.S. Army was dominated by Southern soldiers. Also, as more what Paris said, the South had better military leaders. Those that had gone to the academies and were considered good leaders were all from the South. Most notably, Robert E. Lee, who was going to have to make a tough decision, which we'll talk about later. But your better military leaders were from the South. What might be another advantage? Where was most of the fighting done? The South. Are you going to fight harder to protect your homeland? Yeah, so that's an advantage the South had. They fought on their own soil, which gave them a better sense of pride to fight. They're protecting their own farms and homelands. And you'll see that real clear when we get to our movie, The Blue and the Gray, at the end. And the last advantage is that the people of the South were simply more adept to an outdoor life. They rode horses and shot weapons at an early age. They were more skilled in that area than Northerners. Northerners were kind of city folk. Southerners were country folk. And the style of fighting in the Civil War is going to favor those that have an outdoor life experience. Yep.
Okay, you talk about how the slaves don't talk, like, they won't fight for the South, but can't, if you're a slave of your own, can't they make their slaves fight for them?
They wouldn't do it.
They wouldn't?
They'd rather die. Why would you fight for your own slavery?
I was just wondering.
But that's where the Emancipation Proclamation will come in later. Okay, very good question. Good question. Okay, we'll finish up today by talking about the blockade of all southern ports by the North. The blockade of all southern ports by the North. Now, because of the population difference, what did the South already do concerning foreign countries? What did they do? What did the South do? What? They sent diplomats to the South to help with aid, right? Both financial and other. And because of the population difference, the South would need the help, excuse me, of foreign countries to fight this war. Now, what is the South going to provide those foreign countries in return for their financial and military aid that those foreign countries want? Cotton. Very good. Cotton. Very good, Mort. They're going to supply them with cotton. And they want that cotton for their textile mills in Europe. So in return for financial and military aid, the South is going to provide these foreign countries with cotton. And President Lincoln realized this need on both sides. South needs help. Foreign countries need cotton. So what does he do? He makes sure that that stuff doesn't get in or out, so he makes a formal blockade of all southern ports. He's going to block all ports in the South so they cannot receive military or financial aid from foreign countries, and they won't be able to send their cotton over in return. It was kind of a pipe dream. Because how many miles of southern coastline do you think you have here? In all, it's about 3,000 miles. Isn't that going to be pretty hard to blockade all those ports? And it was. So he had a good idea to blockade the ports, but because of the vast amount of coastline, in excess of 3,000 miles, it was a very difficult task to fully accomplish. But Lincoln knew he needed to try, otherwise he was going to get other countries in this thing. Okay. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about the First Battle of Bull Run, also known as Manassas. Very interesting little battle, and we're going to talk about that, and then I'm going to show you a video. I think it'll really get you off to a good start of what this conflict, what people thought it was going to be, and what it ended up becoming. Okay? So we'll start tomorrow with the First Battle of Bull Run, or it's also known as Manassas. I think you'll understand that why tomorrow. Perfect.